I did a couple previous videos on CNC routing, specifically using Carbide Create, setting it up, getting a project ready to cut out on the machine. We're using a Shapeoko CNC router. In this video, I'm going to use the CNC router I have here in my shop to cut out the design we made in the last video. So let's get started. I'm at my shop now, and I don't have a screen recorder on this computer. It's actually a very small computer, and I don't think it would even fit on there, or might not run at the same time as me doing this. So we're gonna have to do this just by showing you here. So what I have is, if you saw the previous video, I have two different cuts. I have the letters are gonna use a V bit, and the outside is going to be cut out with just an end mill. So I've set this up over here at my shop now. I created this file at home. I came to my shop. I came in and I made sure that the tools were correct, which they are. And now the problem is I have a cutting tool change in the middle of this cut. Now, I don't have any kind of tool changer. I don't have anything on my machine that would reset the Z-axis to 0. And so when you make a change with a bit, your Z-axis is going to be off because you're never going to get the tip of that bit, of the new bit, to be at the exact same height as the tip of your old bit. So the solution to this with Carbide Create and then Carbide Motion is you have to create two files. So what I'm going to do is I have my lettering group right here, and I have my outside cut group right here. I'm going to right click on group 2, which is the outside cut, and I'm going to disable it. All right, so now I'm not sure if you can see this on here, but there is a line through group 2 and there's a line through outside. So right now, if I ran a simulation, it's only going to do the lettering. So now I know that if I create a file with this like this, the file is only going to cut the lettering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Save Toolpaths. I'm going to go to Save Toolpaths to a new C2D file. And I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to call this file Be Mine Candy Heart. Hit Save. Now, I'm going to right click on group 2 again. I'm going to enable it. So now if I did a simulation, it would do everything. And I'm going to go up to group 1. I'm going to disable group 1. So that's the lettering. So now if I ran a simulation, it should only show the outside, which it does. So now I will save toolpaths again. Click on Save Toolpaths to a new C2D file. Hit OK. And this time I'm going to call it Candy Heart Outside, or Exterior Cut. Now, one thing I do, and I should have done this with the other one, I like to put what bit it takes. So I will call this Candy Heart Outside 1/8. And 1/8 tells me it's an 1/8 inch downcut bit. Now I can see my other one right here. I'm going to right click on it and rename it, and I'm going to put 60V. So now if I ever go back to cut these again, I will know as soon as that file loads, I need this bit. It's just a little thing I like to do. It saves me some headache of going back and trying to figure out which bit that I want to use. I could have created a file months ago and forgot what bit I used for it. So there's a little tip for you to make things a little easier. So I've opened up Carbide Motion. Now the first thing you have to do when you first open it is connect the cutter. So it's going to send the message to the machine, hey, we're on here. And then you have to initialize the machine, and that just puts it back in the right top corner of the machining area, and then it also sets the Z-axis. So I'm going to hit that, So the next thing I'm going to need to do is put a bit in. I'm going to start with that 60V. So I have a little bit of preparation to do for that. So first thing, because it's a candy heart, I was trying to find a color that would be close to one of the colors that are typically used. So I found this pink. It is Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch Ultra Cover. The color is Sweet Pea, and I wanted a satin one. I picture candy hearts as kind of being like a little bit chalky. They're not shiny, and so I wanted something that was more of a flat color. That's what I could find. I found it at a local store. If I can find that on Amazon, I'll put the link down in the description. And what I did was I just printed the board I was going to use. Now this is just MDF. And I painted it mid-coat. I sanded a little bit on here just to give it a better texture. And then I painted over that again. Now this board is a little bit larger than what I had programmed in the machine. I had it 12 by 12 in the machine. It's definitely longer this way, and it's maybe 13 the other way. It doesn't really matter because it's just going to assume that there's a 12 by 12 in there, so as long as I have at least that, it'll stay in the cutting area. I just didn't want to cut it down. No sense in making extra sawdust in here because it's just going to that piece will get thrown away anyways. So the next thing I got to do is I got to put a mask on here, because if we're going to cut, or if we're going to cut these words out, those words are going to need spray painted red like you'd see in a candy heart. So I'm going to put a mask on here, and then we'll set it in the machine, we'll set the bit, and we will make our cut. The mask I use is called Oracal 651. That you can get on Amazon. I'll put a link down in the description. I have tried other numbers from this company, and this is the one I get the best results. There's a blue one. Not sure if I have it here because I think I used it all, but I've seen other people use it in videos, and my experience with the blue one is that sometimes it's a little bit thinner material and it peels up sometimes as it's cutting. So if you're cutting something and it peels up, that's a problem, because you will it's pointless. Your paint will get up underneath and it will serve zero purpose. So this has worked really well. I'm going to put some on here and move on. So I usually just roll a little bit out. Now I know I don't need to cover this whole thing. This stuff is a little bit expensive, so that should be plenty. Right there. I just don't like to waste it. So it just has a backer on it, kind of like contact paper. Now again, I'm not going to cover the whole thing. Because this stuff is 12 inches wide, so I'm just going to go from what I'm going to consider the bottom, which is, I'm just going to start from basically where this corner will be on the piece. It's kind of sticky. We'll just work all the bubbles out. That's pretty good. So that's going to sit right like that. Tighten up my toggles here. Alright, now we set the bit. So we're going to start with this bit right here. It's a Monotool RC1148. Very nice tool here. You get that on Tools Today. At Tools Today, you see it's got one knife, and that knife is replaceable. So you could loosen up that little screw and change it out. When you're setting bits, there is a little line with a V underneath it on the shaft of the bit. And I'm sure it can't be seen in the video, but that's where you want to set the bit into the machine. So we're going to run that up to there. So we have to bring the bit over to this corner, which is what I set as the 0 point. Now, my computer is 6 feet away from the tool or so, and it's kind of inconvenient to try to move that. So I do have a controller. Again, I bought these on Amazon as well. If it's still available, I can put a link down in the comments. It was like maybe $15. It saves me a lot of moving around, going back and forth from the machine and the computer, so I can just control it right here. I've actually seen that people also use like Xbox controllers. Not sure the details on how to use that, but there's a D-pad right here that can control the X and Y axis, and then for the Z axis you use the little greater than less than symbol. And I just get it close. I'll get it close, and then I'll adjust how fast it moves, and I'll get a little bit closer. And then I'll adjust how fast it moves again, and I'll just fine tune it there. So now it's moving a little bit slower. This is like 1/100th of an inch at a time. Now, the nice thing about this is I'm going to be able to set the XY to 0, and it's going to stay constant for the second portion of this cut. The only thing that's going to change is our depth. So when you start with an engraving bit that has that point, if you want to be extremely precise, it is easy to do. Now, do I really care how precise it is when my board that I'm cutting from is larger than what I actually need it? Not really. So I'm going to get it close, and close will be good enough for me. So I like where my XY is. I'm going to set that to 0 right now, and then I'm going to move it out in the middle a little bit to set my Z. It's hard to set your Z right on the corner. It just, I don't know. I don't trust it. So I go in a little bit. So we'll come out here, and what I use is just a piece of paper. Find a scrap piece, and I'm going to slide it underneath that bit. So it goes underneath right now. It is dragging, so it's really close. And then I just bring it down until that paper gets pinned there. Slipped out. So there, it's stuck now. So now I'm pretty confident that that's close to where my Z needs to be for this. I will go back in to set 0 and just 0 my Z. Now, my paper's stuck in here. So what I do next is I will go to rapid position, and I go rapid to current Z plus 6 millimeters. I click that first. That raises it up. Now I'll click rapid to current XY, and now we're at a good starting point. If you do that in the opposite order, if you go current XY first, it's going to drag that bit across your workpiece, and you'll probably put a groove in it. So make sure you raise it up first, and then move it to the XY. Now I'm going to load new file, and I'm going to start the cut. So as you can see, it cut out the words. I'm going to just blow it off with some air here, and then I'm going to paint it. Because it's such a small area, I'm going to paint it actually right there on the machine. I'm not worried about getting on anything else, because I should, it's so centered. That way I don't have to take it out and be worried that my 0 is off a little bit. We'll let that dry. We'll come back later and we'll cut the heart out. Just like before, I set the Z-axis to 0, and the way I did that is I moved it out on the workpiece a little bit and used that paper, put it underneath, brought the bit down until the paper didn't move, and then I set it at that point. Now, one thing I wanted to make sure of is I definitely got it right on the top of that surface, because I need it to cut the whole way through. If it doesn't cut the whole way through, it is going to be extra work afterwards, because then I have to cut it out with a bandsaw or something to actually break through that back side. And I have had some problems with that. I don't know if it's my estimate of how thick the actual workpiece is, but it never seems to quite go through. And I try to be extra careful not to cut into that spoil board underneath, but lately I've been trying to go just a little bit deeper than I think necessary, just to try to make sure I punch through the back side of that workpiece. Once the cutting's done, we just remove those clamps. We'll take it out of the machine, and you can see here that once I get the dust off, it looks pretty good. Everything's centered. Now as I flip it over, you'll see it went through on some parts and not others, and this is what I was trying to avoid. And like I said, you really want to make sure you have that bit set, the Z-axis set down as far as it needs to be. So my solution to this is to just cut with a reciprocating tool, just kind of finish it off. It really only needs to break through. And I was going to need to use this tool anyways to cut the tabs that are holding that heart onto the board. So it was going to be necessary anyways. This just helped clean up the edges a little bit and get it ready for the sander. So after I'm done doing this, I take it to the sander, and I have a disc sander, and I just take it over there and I just clean up the edges around the bottom. As you can see, there's a little bit of fray where it didn't break through, And so we just clean those up real well with that disc sander. Next, I flipped it over. I kept that mask on. I flipped it over, and I just spray painted the backside and the edges. And I did a couple coats of this. That MDF really soaks up the paint, and so it takes a little bit of coating to get this to where it needs to be. Next, we just peel that mask off, and it peels back real nice. You'll have to sometimes cut out in between letters. It sticks, like if you have a B, the middle of the B or the middle of the R, you have to just peel off those, and sometimes it takes something like maybe a little razor blade to get those. As I was peeling this off, I realized I had a problem. And as you can see, some of the paint peeled off. So like I've said in my other videos, I like to be completely open. When I have a problem, I'm going to tell you I had a problem. So for some reason, when I pulled that mask off, it peeled some of that pink paint right off of this thing. It is no fault of the process that I showed you. The mask always works. The CNC work was fine. The problem was my fault. I kind of was in a rush to get this done for the video, and I probably didn't allow the paint to cure quite long enough prior to putting that mask on. It is a very sticky mask, and I should have let it cure longer. I thought it was fine because I actually sanded this with a palm sander prior to painting the final coat, and that last coat I did was nice and thin. Everything seemed good. I'm not sure why it chose to pull that off, but it did, and so I've actually lost a little bit of that red look to it. I could probably fix this with a little bit of red paint, maybe like a toothpick to get down in those grooves. Can't really recut it because there's no way to get it exactly where it was in the machine now that we've removed it from the outer board. So that can happen. I should have been a little more careful and shouldn't have been in quite so much of a hurry, and I think we would have been fine. So this is the final result. Not quite what I had planned, but like I said, we can probably fix it. I am going to have to hit it a little bit more with some paint. It actually gave it, it's hard to see probably, but it gave it a kind of a cool texture where it peeled up. It's not just a smooth surface anymore. It has a little bit of texture to it. But other than that, I think it's a good project. You could actually do more of these and probably sell them, I would imagine. I am actually going to offer the cut files for this, for the CNC machine, and they will be in the description. It'll be a link to take you to probably my website, and you'll just have to throw your email in there, and by doing so, you'll get the file for this. So it'll be a free, just offering it to you just to kind of go along with this video. And you could, if you have Carbide Create, go in and edit it. You could change the words or whatever you wanted. Keep in mind that it's set to be on a workpiece that's 12 inches by 12 inches and a ½ inch thick. So if you're using something else, you will have to make the adjustments for that. Besides that, thanks for watching. I hope you learned a little bit on how to get that machine set up for the first time. I hope you also learn to make sure that your paint is fully cured before you put any kind of mask over it, or you may run into a problem down the road. So check out the videos here on the next screen, and thanks for watching.